Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Watchbox Reviews. I'd really appreciate it, and I commit to updating this channel every day. If you like this watch, you can purchase it on thewatchbox.com. Buy, trade, and sell luxury watches on thewatchbox.com. Today we are discussing a spectacular Baselworld 2013 debut, something like the flagship of the Aqua Terra collection. This full red gold Aqua Terra day date had an original retail price of over $35,000, and I can confirm that it looks and it feels $35,000 on the wrist. It's also a remarkably versatile size, as 41.5 is modern, but it's not oversized, and on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it wears quite easily. Now, the timepiece is reasonably slim. The Aqua Terra line, featuring no rotating bezel, is more of a surf and turf dual-purpose Seamaster than the hardcore rotating bezel sports watches. It's 14.3 millimeters thick with a generously sloped case flank, so though it may not be compatible with the absolute tightest of specialty cuffs, you're going to have no difficulty fitting this underneath a jacket sleeve of any kind. Lug to lug, it's nicely constrained, 48.2 millimeters lug to lug, 50.2 if you include the solid end links of the bracelet. I always say if you have a smaller male wrist, which I define as 14 to 16.5 centimeters circumference, you want to be 50 millimeters lug to lug or fewer, and this watch definitely hits that mark. It's also very comfortable because the bracelet itself is as comfortable as it is gorgeous. Let me pull this twin folding, twin trigger clasp open and give you a look at what you buy when you pay $35,000 for an Omega. You get a lot of Omega's red gold. Now, this is red gold. It's not pink, it's not rose, it is intense, and that's the operative word. The combination of the satin and the polish provides high contrast, so though you get a lot of gold, it is broken up by differential finish. Polished on the outer flanks, you can see on the underside it has large gaps to aerate the wrist and avoid the pinching of skin or pulling of hair. It feels as solid as a sports watch bracelet, which properly speaking it is, but it also has the souplesse of shorter links, much like what you'll find on a Rolex President bracelet. The clasp is nicely made. It's red gold in its own right. It's a double folder, and it's not quite as bulky as a dive clasp, so it's less susceptible to desk diving scratches and scuffs. All removable links are sized by screws, and the clasp is opened by releasing twin triggers, so this cannot accidentally pop open, and as massive as this watch is, that's peace of mind. Turning over, you can see that the case is familiar to anyone who has seen an Omega sports watch, Speedmaster or Seamaster for the last 50 years. Chances are you've seen these polished bevels and these satin finished flanks. It's also nicely arced, so it wraps around the wrist rather than flaring out as straight lugs can. The handsome contrast of the bevels gives way to a polished and conical, almost flat plane bezel. You'll note that it frames a dial that's a little bit challenging to describe. I'm going to get closer. Let's give ourselves a bit more light and keep everything in sharp definition. And I would describe the dial as somewhere between bronze and black. It has elements of both. It's a metallic reflective surface that has some of the dynamism of a sunburst, but you'll note that the grain of the dial, and it's more than grain, it is a imprint with depth, runs top to bottom. This is Omega's teak deck concept, which prior to 2017 ran top to bottom. Post 2017 it runs side to side. I actually like this a little bit better because it reminds me of a pinstriped suit. You'll note that there is a sunken seconds and minutes track outboard. The hands as well as the indices are red gold, and the watch is robustly luminescent. It does have the soul of a sports watch, even as it can work as a dress watch. Another feature that I like 2016 and prior is the shouldered crown guard. You have a little bit of a protection against shearing that creates a handsome countersunk profile about the crown, so it doesn't stick out quite as much as it does on the 2017 model. Both are nice. This is just what I prefer. You'll note that the dial has a historically inspired broad arrow minutes hand, which you can easily discern in the dark. There will be a wonderful loom shot. And the nomenclature of the model name, day date, justified by the functionality. You have a day and you have a date, and they're nicely arrayed along a vertical axis that contains essentially all of the action on the dial. You have the day, you have the marquee, the name, Seamaster script, the hands. the dial text, and of course the date, all of that top to bottom. Now, the watch doesn't feature the conventional time zone stepping system that you get with most of the 8500 watches, 8500 being the base caliber on which this caliber 8612 is based. But you have a double quickset system that allows you to rapidly cycle the day and the date by rolling back and forth in the intermediate crown position. You still have the stop seconds function, so you can synchronize to a reference time. It is a screw down crown, and you still have 150 meters of water resistance. Automatic winding with twin mainspring barrels for timing stability and a 60-hour power reserve. One of the standout features of the 8612 is that it has an 18-karat rotor and it has an 18-karat balance bridge. These two solid gold components adding a distinct measure of richness, as we're used to seeing perhaps solid gold movements from the likes of FP Journe, less so from Omega, but Omega does it beautifully, and yes, they are hand-finished each. The edges of them are finished to a higher degree than you'll see on a standard rotor and bridge for an 8500. Blackened screws, oxidized black, and arabesque Cote de Genève across the surfaces. 60-hour power reserve beating away at the coaxial quirky specific rate of 25,200 vibrations per hour. Still a full balance bridge and a free sprung index for shock resistance. SI14 silicon hairspring, rendering the watch essentially amagnetic. It's also a COSC certified Swiss chronometer, and it has the tri-level coaxial system that represents the latest iteration of George Daniels' tangential contact multi-level escapement. What does it do for you? Well, it gives you better long-term timing stability, better short-term timing precision, and ultimately, it gives you a reduced maintenance requirement long-term. It's also the reason why this watch can be considered effectively as accurate as the Dayfi Lab from Zenith. That's right, I've timed these 8500 family watches at 0.3 to 0.5 seconds per day in multiple positions for an actual 24-hour period, which is to say it lives up to its legend. You can see the legend and put it on your wrist on the watch box. And we're back with the Omega Seamaster Aqua Terra day date. Great in gold by day, brilliantly blue by night. See it on the watch box.